Rewind. Tough loss last week against the Detroit Lions at home, of course, with the Cardinals. And 26-23 was the final. Cardinals dropped to 2-1 on the season. A disappointing game all around as the Detroit Lions, who were 0-2 at the time, came in. I told you guys last week I was worried about their passing game with getting Galladay back. I was worried about the Cardinals secondary and how they were going to perform, as they hadn't really been tested for a whole game yet. I had a feeling it was coming this week, and it came. So, of course, really disappointing to see. But, however, there were a few positives that came out of it. We do try to tend to be a little bit more positive on this show. Doesn't always happen, of course. And we do have to talk about some negatives that we saw out of this game that were very, very disappointing to see, obviously there. So, of course, Lions place kicker Matt Prater kicked a 39-yard field goal with no time left on the clock. So that's how they got to the 26-23 game. Cardinals were in pretty much control of this game, I felt. Obviously, Kyler Murray, 23 for 35, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he did have the 3 interceptions, and that was his passing stats there. The 3 interceptions were killer, mainly because they're drive killers, obviously. He's thrown 1 interception in the first couple of games, but he was always able to rebound. The problem why this was a killer with that final score of 26-23, the Lions scored 10 points directly off of 2 of those turnovers. So obviously if you do the math, 26-23, you take 10 away, Cardinals are winning this game. They had a chance to win it multiple times. They had a chance to put the Lions away multiple times, and they just weren't able to do it. Let's get into the positives here first as we start this off here. Of course, Cards were in this game. One positive I got, and I wrote it down throughout the game, that Cardinals are still in this game, even with the 3 turnovers. Usually 3 interceptions leads to a bad loss. Cardinals were in this game in the fourth quarter. In fact, they had the lead in the fourth quarter. And that was kind of exciting to see, even though you don't want to see the 3 turnovers, obviously. But it was good to see they didn't just fold in after they got them. They still fought hard. They still went after the Lions and did it. Another positive. Again, we've talked about it, and it also can be a negative as well. But we're talking about it as the Cardinals running game was successful when they went to it. Now, here's the disappointing and negative side of this as we cross over to a negative. Lions' run defense is god-awful. People have been running on them left and right, all over the place. And the Cardinals didn't go to the running game enough in this game, I don't think. I would have liked to see him rush the ball a little bit more than they did on there. For instance, Kenyon Drake had 18 carries, 73 yards. Kyler Murray only had 5 for 29 and 1 touchdown. I know that's only for a quarterback, but for Kyler Murray, that's down on there. And that kind of leads to where the turnovers came in that we'll get into here. The other positive that I got is Cardinals' passing game was good again. Obviously, I'm not including the interceptions there. Deandre Hopkins was stellar as usual, is pretty much breaking records for his time with the Cardinals here so far this season. Of course, we have an issue with him coming up this week. Andy Isabella finally was more than 1 catch for a long catch, and then he disappeared again. Andy Isabella only had 4 catches, 4 receptions, and 47 yards. But he had 2 touchdowns. It was great to see from Andy Isabella. Obviously, Christian Kirk was out on this game with his groin injury, so it was even better to see Andy Isabella step up and fill into that Christian Kirk spot. And, it's only 47 yards, but they were big catches that he got. 2 touchdowns was the big deal for him on there as well. He got every ball that was thrown to him, which is great to see. Unlike on the negative side, Keyshawn Johnson, his first game back from he was on the COVID-19 list, so this was his first game back, and they targeted him 7 times in this game. He was 2 catches only out of 7, and he dropped some balls that were easily catchable, and he dropped some balls in some pivotal times, and there. And he did have 24 yards on his catches, but some of those were just killing everything out there as they went. Another negative on the passing game, Larry Fitzgerald, only one reception, and he had 0 yards off that reception. I understand how offenses work. They design plays. You go through your progressions. You find the open guy. And nothing against Keyshawn Johnson. He's a young guy, but he did have some pivotal drops. But why isn't Larry getting involved in this offense a little bit more? Only one catch for 0 yards when they targeted Keyshawn Johnson 7 times, and he only got 2 of them. I'd like to see Larry get into this offense a little bit more on there. Obviously, the big negative is, as we talked about it already, Kyler Murray's interceptions. The Lions defense baited him all game. They were doing stuff that Kyler Murray was confused back there. He got flustered a little bit when he wasn't able to run. And by flustered, I mean he didn't, just panic. But he didn't set his feet properly. First interception, he overthrew his receiver. Second interception, the linebacker basically went off of the receiver and then stepped in front of him. He stared down Larry Fitzgerald on the other interception. And they were just able to play off of it there. Any good defense in the NFL will be able to intercept the ball in those conditions. So when he wasn't able to get outside and run, he did make decisions. He made poor mechanical decisions. He threw across his body on one of them. He didn't step into the throw, so it went high on him on another interception. So just a negative on there that I have no doubt in my mind, even though Kyler Murray is known to do this stuff here early in his career, this is also a learning curve for him, and I expect him to do improve as the season goes on these mechanic issues that are leading to some of these interceptions. And he's able to see the difference on what the defenses did to him last week, and then he can adjust to that and learn from it as well. So it's not all roses out there when he's out there running around and picking up big yardage for first downs and things. Another negative, the defense. I felt like the defense was pretty good all game, actually, for the most part. Lions started off with a field goal on their first drive. It was 11 plays, 56 yards. Then the Lions punted twice. Then the Lions scored a touchdown, 6 plays, 27 yards. That, of course, was after a Kyler Murray interception, his first one. But next one came back. Cardinals did score a touchdown, but then the Lions scored a touchdown right back against on this defense. This one was a killer. 6 plays, 75 yards. Get this, guys, a minute 22 total time that the Lions had that ball. They had a 20-yard pass. They had an 11-yard pass. They had a 10-yard pass. They had a 19-yard pass. Then they scored the touchdown for 15 yards. That secondary was non-existent last week. They were just leaving a lot of room for Galladay for the Lions out there. Hawkinson, another tight end, came in and caught passes for big yardage, which was the Cardinals' problems last year. We haven't seen it yet this year. Marvin Jones came in. Basically the Lions receiver stats aren't great in terms of receptions. Kenny Galladay had 6 receptions. As I said, the tight end Hawkinson had 4 receptions. Marvin Jones had 3 receptions. They kept them, in conservative natures there. Nobody went off for 10, 12 receptions, anything like that. The problem was the yardage. Galladay had 57 yards and a touchdown. Hawkinson had 53 yards on his 4 receptions. Marvin Jones Jr. had 51 yards on 3 receptions. Just big play after big play against this Cardinals secondary, which also goes to the point when I was watching the game. One of the notes I made was Cardinals defense was getting to Matt Stafford. They were sacking him. They were hitting him. They were putting pressure on him, especially early in the game. Went away from that a little bit in the second half. But a lot of those, big plays come about because the defensive line and the front 7 can't get to the quarterback, which did happen in the second half and allowed the Lions to drive down the field a lot. For instance, so after, those 2 touchdowns by Detroit against those Lions, of course, that was the first half. Then the Lions come out in the second half against this Cardinals defense, and they punt the ball. So Cardinals, right off the bat, stopped them from going. Kyler Murray threw another interception there. which this was good to see. And I made a note during the game on this one that the Cardinals held them to a field goal after this Kyler Murray interception. So the Lions had 6 plays, 16 yards. Defense held them. A 24-yard field goal by Matt Prater on the Lions. So it was good to see. They stopped them. Then the defense came out at the end of the third quarter and got the Lions to punt. They went 7 plays, 50 yards. Cardinals gave up some big chunk yards in this one as well, but they held them to a punt. So excellent, right? Then the fourth quarter came on this defense. 8 plays, 14 yards after a Cardinals punt and a Cardinals beginning of the fourth quarter. We'll talk about their offense in the fourth quarter here in a minute. They punt the ball. Lions get the ball back. 8 plays, 14 yards, 35-yard field goal by Matt Prater as he, that ties the game up for the Lions. But just the defense, 8 plays, 14 yards is not very far to go. Defense feels like it held them up and kept them to only the field goal in that situation. I mean, they had a minus 9-yard sack on that drive. So it felt like the defense was doing well. At no point in time did I think that the defense was struggling in this game. It's just they just kept the Lions around and these big chunk yards, chunk plays, things like that, a little unsure about. But the big one, the killer one, was when it counted on this defense at the end of the game. The last drive for the Lions, 10 plays, 67 yards. Obviously ended the game. Last second field goal. Time ran out. 39-yard field goal for Matt Prater. Cardinals just couldn't get off the field on this one, right? Adrian Peterson had some running. 10-yard passes, 20-yard passes. A big thing on this one, which we're going to always talk about on the show, is penalties, right? There was an offensive holding penalty on the Lions, which backed them up 10 yards. Cardinals gave it right back with the 13-yard penalty where Byron Murphy had defensive pass interference as we went down. Then an 11-yard pass, then a run, no play, then a 20-yard pass, then a negative 3-yard run, of course, which set up the field goal for Matt Prater to win the game. So again, a negative defense. I was worried about the secondary. I don't think they played hugely bad, I guess is the better way to say that. I just felt that they did a good enough job to win this game, but they couldn't get the ball back when the Lions had the ball in that last drive. Cards' fourth quarter offense is a negative. It was dreadful, and they had the lead in the fourth quarter, as I talked about. Here was the offensive plays by the Cardinals here in the fourth quarter. 3 plays, 2 yards. Excellent, right? 55 seconds off the clock. That was the first drive of the fourth quarter. When they have the leads, 23-20. Then 5 plays, 27 yards, a minute 55 off the clock. And as we just talked about, the first one, 3 plays, 2 yards, 55 seconds. Cardinals ended up punting that ball to the Lions, who got a field goal out of it. Then the Cardinals get the back. It's tied. Cardinals can waste the clock down and go. Unlike the first 2 games where they were able to give the ball to Kenyon Drake and let him get some big chunks and wear this clock down. Cardinals did the 5 plays, 27 yards. Minute 55 is the killer on this, right? So he didn't go anywhere. Well, they only took a minute 55 off of the play clock. Had to punt the ball back, and that's where the Lions drove down to score. It was a dreadful fourth quarter. Definitely a negative for the Cardinals. They were in this game. They could have won this game. That fourth quarter doomed them in, as well as those interceptions that Kyler Murray threw as well. So, as I said, Cardinals secondary did struggle against the pass, and we have some issues in the secondary. A lot of injuries in the secondary, and a couple of more popped up this week that we'll get into. This secondary for the Cardinals is a lot of worries going into this Jets game this Panthers game this weekend, where not that the Panthers are throwing kings here, but this is the issue that the Cardinals have with Budda Baker getting hurt also, which of course he was in a cast. We knew he was going to go down on there. So we brought it up last week. It is a worrisome thing, no doubt about it, as we go forward. It's going to be the thing to watch on that defense. If that defensive front can't get pressure on a quarterback, that secondary is going to get exposed. We oftentimes during this look at things that a lot of people don't look at, to be honest with you, but I caught my eye earlier, obviously, was the field goal distances that the Cardinals were set up and relying on Zane Gonzalez to do. So if you've seen any of the first 3 weeks episodes, we focused on the long field goals the Cardinals leave them with. Now, in this game, Cardinals only had 1 field goal attempt. And, I mean, Zane Gonzalez did miss an extra point in this game, which just, I get it. Mistakes happen. It's just infuriating, right, to miss an extra point. And as long as it doesn't happen all the time, you don't want it to happen never. But as long as it doesn't happen all the time, okay, we can live with it. It wouldn't have affected this game at all. However, field goals, right? So most of the field goals, I don't have the stat in front of me. We individualized them last week. But most of the field goals are 49, 50. I know last week he had a 30-yarder, a couple 30-yarders that he made. But the only attempt he had this week, beginning of the third quarter, guess how many yards, everybody? You're right, 54 yards, field goal. By Gonzalez out there. So the Cardinals left him for another long. Well, like I said, he can make them. There's no doubt about it. He can make these field goals. But I'm thinking it's more of an indicative of the sign that the Cardinals can't drive the ball deep into an opponent's offensive zone. Are they resting on their laurels that their field goal kicker can make a very long 50-yard field goal and more? And is that holding up the offense to where they get farther up there? That's the question. That's what I'm monitoring. I don't see any evidence of that per se, that they're purposely doing it. Obviously, they're trying to get down the field. It just so happens they have, and it's a great thing that they have a guy that can kick 50-plus yard field goals for this reason. But I'd like to see the Cardinals drive the ball deeper into the opponent's zone, a little bit more into the field, a little bit more than what they've been doing there. So like I said, another 50-yard field goal there. Well, another thing we talk about on here, obviously, is penalties. I've been railing on the Cardinals for their amount of penalties these first 3 weeks. Oh, we'll put it this way. If you want a silver lining, they cleaned this up a little bit this week. And instead of 11 that they've been having, I think they had in week 3, if I remember correctly, and they have a lot, right? This week, they only had 7 penalties for 38 yards total. Great, right? They made a ton of improvements. They're four better than what they had before. The issue is what the penalties are and when they're happening. That is also getting a little infuriating. One thing we need to stop seeing, I need to stop seeing, we all need to stop seeing, is Kyler Murray getting these intentional grounding penalties. He's had 1 a game, I believe. He had 2 in 1 game. He's gotten, I mean, it's great to see him get rid of the ball when nothing is there, and he scrambles around a little bit. But he loses track of where he is on the field. The one he got this game, he actually scrambled around. He just never went out of the pocket. So when he threw it away, he was still in the pocket, and he'd run, 5 or 10 yards all over the field, and he just never got outside. He didn't realize he didn't, and he threw the ball away. So it's great to see him throw the ball away when nothing's there. Absolutely is. But he needs to be more in the moment and realize that whether he got out of the pocket or not, to throw that ball away. It's an improvement. It's a young thing. It's one of those things where you don't want to scold him for throwing the ball away because he's doing a good job with that. However, at the same time, got to get out of the pocket. And I know he's probably being stressed. It's just in the moment, on the field. He probably just loses track of it. It's just like to see that as an improvement because those penalties are drive killers. The other big penalty that hurt in this game was the 13-yard penalty. I already talked about it a little bit. 13-yard penalty against Byron Murphy on Hawkinson on Detroit's final drive. Just had an offensive holding penalty on the Lions, which backed them up, made it a long drive. Next play, Byron Murphy holds Hawkinson on 2nd and 15 and allows Detroit's final drive to stay alive, which they shortly after that went down, kicked a field goal to win the game there. Single-handedly kept that game alive, that drive alive, and allowed the Lions to kick the game-winning field goal. Obviously, we don't know what would have happened on 2nd and 15 if that penalty wouldn't have happened, but we do know that it gave them an automatic first down and kept that drive alive. And, of course, that was the eventual game winner. I know I'm harping on that. It's just need to clean up these penalties. Amounts and when they happen. It's very, very frustrating. Okay. The other one. This one drives me nuts, and it affected the game because it was 4th and 1. But the reason why it happened is just, it infuriates me, even to this day. As I record this several days after this game, I had time to think about it, had time to go over it. Just every time this has gone on in these games, it's driving me batty. I don't understand why you take Kyler Murray off the field to bring in Streveler to run a play in these different conditions. It drives me nuts. Kyler Murray's a better quarterback than he is. Kyler Murray's a better runner than he is. Why are we taking the best runner at the quarterback position off the field? So in case you missed it, 4th and 1, they send Streveler out. Lots of confusion on the field. Play clock's running down. It's like nobody knows what to do at that point. They finally get lined up. False start penalty on tight end Arnold, which of course makes it 4th and 6. And this is the drive where the Cardinals ended up settling for a field goal. 54-yard field goal, no less. This Streveler experiment, where he comes in on these short drives and everything, needs to end. It needs to end now. In this instance, they could have picked up a 4th and 1 with Kyler Murray without getting cute. This is just another example of the play calling by Cliff Kingsbury, where it can be fantastic at times, also puts the Cardinals back and is dreadful to watch when it occurs on the field. And this instance just drove me batty, and it ended up, like I said, they only got a field goal out of it. Great. That's excellent. But it could have gotten so much more, and at least taken more time off the clock and get closer for the field goal, if the worst case scenario there. So, the other thing we talked about on here was the time of possession. And I know a lot of people don't think time of possession is a big deal. I've heard from some of you. But the way, like I told you guys before, I look at it, and I look at time of possession as strictly how long is your defense on the field. It's not how long you hold the ball. So if you wear down the opponent's defense by having the ball for long drives to where they're just tired out there, you got a better chance of having them make a mistake and you getting a big play out of it. That didn't happen in this one. The overall time of possession, Lions had 32 minutes and 50 seconds. Cardinals had 27 minutes and 10 seconds. You guys got to remember also, that final drive of the game was 10 plays, 67 yards, 4 minutes, 49 seconds. Total time for the Lions. Cardinals defense looked tired. So I know we break this down every time. Here was the Cardinals offensive play time, broken down per drive. 259, 408, 141, 422, 31 seconds, end of half. We don't count that one because obviously it was end of the half. 341 on that field goal drive. 206, 452. And then we get into the fourth quarter, 55 seconds. That's not, and then the 155. That isn't going to wear defense down at all. And not that the Lions were much better, but they were. Their first drive was 6 minutes, 33 seconds that the Cardinals defense was on the field. First drive out of the game. Their next one was 1:06, so they got him right out of there. The next one was 3:56, resulted in a punt. But still, it's a 4-minute drive, defense being out there. Their second quarter, their touchdown was 3 minutes, 22 seconds. I'll build on top of it. Then 1:22 for that touchdown off of 75-yard touchdown with the big plays there, right? Then, like I told you guys, 2:09 for the field goal after the interception. Then the 3:37 where they ended up punting it at the end of the third quarter. And then we already talked about 4:19 and 4:49 on the field goal. Field goals there in the fourth quarter. Defense looked tired at the end. They couldn't get off the field. And you'd like to see that number flipped a little bit as it goes through. Obviously, some of those Lions, timing is short because of the interceptions, of course. So they got short field. So, after that first interception, they had it for 1:06. They didn't do anything with it. On the second interception, they had the ball for 3 minutes, 22 seconds. This is right after they did a 3-minute, 56-second drive. Cardinals had the ball for 141 with that interception. Then they were right back for. So basically, the Cardinals defense was on the field for almost 7 minutes at the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter. That's a lot of time. Wears down a defense. So I'd like to see that, obviously, get flipped back like it has been in the first couple of games that the Cardinals won. Cardinals defense which was good. First of all, seeing Adrian Peterson in a Detroit Lions jersey was weird. I couldn't get used to it. It drove me nuts every time he got the ball and I saw it was him. I couldn't put my head around it for some reason. But the Cardinals held the Lions rushing. I mean, I'm going to give you his yards at 75, and that seems like a lot. He really didn't do much. It was a lot of chunk yardage. He had 22 carries to get that 75 yards, 3.4 average. So it was good to see Cardinals defense kind of bottle up that run game. Of course, we talked about it already. Kenyon Drake had 18 carries for 73 yards on the rushing. They're just not going to it enough, I don't think. I think they need to focus on it more, especially because the Lions have one of the worst run defenses in the league going into this game last week. And the Cardinals just didn't go to it that much. They bottled up Kyler Murray. And Kenyon Drake, I feel like he should have gotten probably another 5 or possibly 10 more carries out there. See what he could do improve on those 73 yards. In the passing game, of course, Deandre Hopkins is on fire this year. 10 receptions, 137 yards for him. Another great game. So 3 weeks into the season. We already talked about Andy Isabella with his 4 and 47. Daryl Daniels, 2 for 24. And then we talked about the Keyshawn Johnson, 2 for 24, where 7 targets. That just should have been more. And, of course, I brought up Larry is not involved in this offense. Of course, looking forward to this week against the Panthers. I did see a bunch of news reports saying the Cardinals want to get Larry more involved. Well, probably a good idea. Probably should have realized that before. So, of course, Buda Baker had a cast on his hand this game. Ended up having surgery after the game. And we don't know how long he's going to be out. Definitely this week. We'll see when we can get him back because he needs to be out there on that defense. No doubt about it. He had 8 tackles in this game. 1 tackle for loss out there. As I said, the secondary struggled definitely as they were out there. But then the pass rush also fell apart. Chandler Jones had no sacks in this game. Only 2 tackles, 2 assists. Kennard, who ended up getting injured in this game, is questionable for this week against the Panthers. 2 tackles, 1 assist. He did have a sack, though. He had 1 tackle for loss and a sack. So I'd like to see those front 7, kind of rebound for the Cardinals and get to the quarterback a little more and everything. So the Cardinals, it's just an interesting fact. It doesn't mean anything year to year, to be honest with you, but it is an interesting trend that the Cardinals are now 3-10-1 in September games since 2017. Man, they just can't win early in the year. It just tells you they come out of training camp. Now, granted, they've had some tough games on their schedule, right? They've had to play the Patriots a couple years ago. So it's not all, it's not like they're going up against horrible teams and struggling it, but he is there. We can go. It's just something I like to look at, just weird stats like that. So DeAndre Hopkins has 5+ receptions in 21 consecutive games, which is the second longest streak in NFL history. Great to see him out there. Again, as we look forward to week 4 now and put to bed the Cardinals' first loss this season as you see people walking behind me. As we see Cardinals coming up here and what's going on with the Panthers. Like to just put that Lions win to bed. They should have won that game. I have no reason to think they wouldn't have won that game except for some obvious mistakes and just that defensive deal. So we turn the page. Cardinals, Panthers, Fox TV this weekend, 10 a.m. kickoff. Again, 10 a.m. kickoff. So let's see how the Cardinals react to an early start for them. It's 10 a.m. Phoenix time. First time this year the Cardinals are facing this early of a start on the East Coast. They have a few more games like this as well coming up. And traditionally, the Cardinals have struggled on the East Coast for these early starts. So it's something to pay attention to. The Panthers did win their first game last weekend. They are 1-2 on the season. They are without Christian McCaffrey, of course, who's their dynamic player. But Davis, I believe his name is, the backup, was in there, still caught a lot of balls and still got outside and ran a lot for the Panthers. Cardinals have struggled to stop the pass, especially last weekend against the Lions. Now, I feel like the Lions passing game, especially with Galladay coming back last week, is better than the 0-2 record and now the 1-2 record of the Lions indicated. And they're going to win some games just based off of that passing game. The Lions are. Teddy Bridgewater and this Panthers offense so far this year with a new head coach and Rule, they like to pass the ball, but they like to especially pass the ball to the running back. That didn't change last week in the Panthers' victory. Even with McCaffrey being out, they still ran those flare outs to the running back. They still did those little short out passes. It's going to be interesting to see how the Cardinals can stop that going into this game as well. How are you going to get up there to stop the game running back from getting out and getting big chunks of yardage out of the backfield on short passes? That is a big part of the Panthers game. In this game also, I feel like the Cardinals need to run more. I mean, last week I gave you the stat. I don't remember off the top of my head now. I should have looked it up. But the Lions were pretty dreadful against the run. I mean, they were in the bottom half of the NFL on the run. And the Panthers are worse. Their run defense is 28th in the league. So they're basically only a few teams worse than them in rushing. Get the ball to Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds, and let's get them a lot of carries and see what they could do. That'll open up the running game. That'll open up Kyler Murray to get outside and run a little bit as well. I like to see that definitely happen this week. But the other reason why I think it's going to be important is DeAndre Hopkins has an ankle injury. And he's going to be a game-time decision. And even if he plays, he's going to be hobbled. He's not going to be 100%. So I'm not expecting what we've been seeing so far of 100-something yards per game by Hopkins this week. So let's take the pressure off the passing game and let's run the ball. You didn't do it very much against the Lions defense. That was bad against the rush. And that was not as bad, as I struggle to say that, as the Panthers' rush defense is going into this game. So let's see it. Now, the other side of it is, on the defensive side, is lots of injuries this week, especially on the defensive side. So we talked about the injuries that happened during the game. Budda Baker had the thumb injury. Of course, he's been out. He had surgery this week. He was in a cast last week, so hopefully he's going to miss one game. They're not giving a timetable on him. Could be up to 2 games to go. Larry Fitzgerald, of course, did not practice a couple times this week, but that's just, Veterans Day off is what they call it for him. As we talked about, DeAndre Hopkins' ankle is worrisome. Game time decision. If he's a go, he's not going to be 100%. Might be just used as a decoy. That's what I expect more. Devin Kennard, his calf has been bothering him. He did not practice all week. We're unsure what we're going to get out of him on that defensive front that we need to get pressure back there on Teddy Bridgewater to help out that secondary. Corey Peters did get some practice in this week, but she hasn't been in there. But obviously, we're going to need that substitution on that defensive line on there. Mason Cole's hamstring for that offensive line. He is starting to practice a little bit more, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him limited or not playing at all this weekend again to go. But then as the week went on, in practice, oh, by the way, Christian Kirk, his groin, he sat out last week. He was limited in practice all week. I haven't read anything on what they've said, if he's definitely playing, game time decision, or if he's out. I haven't seen anything on that yet. But my opinion on that is you can give him another day off in order to take, pressure off of the Kyler Murray as he passes the ball, and it doesn't go to Keyshawn Johnson that much there. So I've started to so many wide receivers. I'm trying to remember all the names that I've spoken of here today. But as the week went on, that secondary, right, our safety position, they're talking about moving Isaiah Simmons to safety, which was his natural position in college, but he struggled in that inside linebacker position that they have him starting in here. And there was talk this week of moving him to safety to help out the safety position that's been hurt. With Chris Banjo has a hamstring issue, didn't practice all week. And Budda Baker, the other safety, definitely out this week. So Cardinals need help back there. And then Drake Kirkpatrick, opposite of Patrick Peterson, gets injured in practice, head injury. I haven't seen the word concussion be used yet, so I don't know if he's in concussion protocol or not. I imagine he is, but we're not sure what his status is back there. So this secondary, all of a sudden, is extremely banged up for the Cardinals with Teddy Bridgewater that likes to throw the ball. And going to be another tough week against the Panthers for the secondary for the Cardinals. And, I'm still expecting a good thing from the Cardinals this weekend. It just might be a little tougher this weekend than it should have been, than I would have thought it would be with all these injuries. And just came out, actually. Christian Kirk will be a game day decision. So Christian Kirk and D-Hop will be game time decisions. And even if they play, they're not going to be 100%, which means good news is that's going to mean they have to get Larry involved a little bit more, which is good. That way they're not forcing it. He's going to have to be involved more. And Andy Isabella needs to have a follow-up game to what he had last game. He can't take a step back and struggle on the receiver side there. So, big game for Kyler Murray on a bounce back this week, of course. 3 interceptions last week. Looked not very good. And, he needs a lot of pressure on him this week, and he needs to shoulder that pressure, but he needs to not force things. I was trying to figure out how to say that, without sounding completely out of line about it. Take that pressure, take the extra stuff that's going to be on you this week with all these injuries, and harness it for good. Don't force things out there like you did last week against the Lions. So, Hassan Reddick is going to have a big role this game in that secondary, especially if Kennard is out. Isaiah Simmons, we're going to have to see what he can do if they do move him into that. I imagine they'd move him into the Buda Baker section of the safety there, where he does play down in the box a little bit more. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see till 10 a.m. on Sunday on what Isaiah Simmons can do out there again. So, Drake Kirkpatrick being the game time decision. Who starts opposite him there? Because obviously Byron Murphy's still back there. I think it would be Kevin Peterson would take the place for Drake Kirkpatrick there. So, like I said, that secondary was tested last week. It's going to be tested this week. So, all right. There will be fans in the stands. The Panthers can have, I think they said 20%, 25%. But I think that comes out to about 5,000 fans in attendance for the game this weekend. And, I mean, it's not going to be super loud out there. I don't think it's going to affect anything. It's just going to have fans out there. They'll have people yelling at, I'm sure. But it's not going to, affect it differently. There's probably not going to be a silent count type of a thing. So, but there's going to be interesting to see fans in the stadium for the first time for the Cardinals in these first 3 games. So, now, Cardinals defense is tops in the NFL on third downs and 7th overall defense. Even with all these injuries, I still expect the Cardinals to pull out a victory. I expect them to keep Teddy Bridgewater in track. I expect them to keep the running back, since McCaffrey's out, in check. Panthers don't have huge receivers out there that, you kind of, we're not going to be sweating that the, Panthers have some, they don't have a D-Hop type receiver out there. So, all that being said, on the offense, I think Kyler Murray will rebound, even though we're unsure about his receiving situation. Larry will step up very nicely, of course, and should be a great game to watch. Of course, I think Cardinals win this game 28-23, and it's going to be a fun game. Hopefully they can get back in the winning side and go to 3-1 on the season. Of course, we'll see this weekend. So thanks for tuning in to the Cardinals Rewind. Of course, this is a main event podcast. You can reach me at SMAC500. We'll be back next week, of course, to review the game against the Panthers, as well as look forward to, I believe they got the Jets the following week. Schedule's kind of running together on me now as we go. I got to shake my cobwebs out as we go through this here. But hopefully another Cardinals victory this weekend coming our way. It's going to be an interesting game for many aspects as we discussed here today. So definitely give me your who wins and who loses at the Main Event Pod is where you can follow to get these podcasts, the special Cardinals Rewind podcast. And of course, you can find it on all the podcast systems, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, etc. So we'll see you next week, and go Cardinals.